here. He's got his own billiard room.
Yes, it's what do you call it, Kramer? The billiard room? No. The name. The billiard? Not the billiards. It was. Come on, Rudy. Come on. We call it the place to be. The place to be. Yes, it's the place to be. Then I shall be there.
Now, it's time. Live and in living color. The Grandy Man can.
Time to play the game.
Well, you always left me satisfied and smiling.
That's what she said.
Why do I want this?
Yeah.
Because I want to make bank, bro. I want to get ass. I want to drive a Range Rover.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is now time for the Place to Be podcast. And now your hosts, Justin Rosero and Scott Criscolo.
Walk the bitch, diamonds and pearls, I mean. Should've seen them shit shining on the wrist. Now money ain't a problem, see my dough is like. Pulled out my bank.
Place to Be Nation, we are here like woe indeed. This is your co-host, Justin Rosero. Joining me, as always, my PIC, the man who always is down with Black Rob and the Bad Boy family, and that is my PIC, Scotty C. How you doing, Scott?
Good evening, Mr. Rosero. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's edition of the Place to Be podcast. We hope you enjoyed our episode number 48 earlier in the week.
Yeah, I feel like I should have brought more energy on that. I kind of got sidetracked with the song. We are here, episode 49.
Yeah. Which means we do have a contest winner, but we will not tell you who it is until the end of our program tonight. Yes. We do have a winner in the 50th episode contest, and we thank everyone, all of our loyal listeners, for all of their input and all of their suggestions as to the greatest moment in the history of the Place to Be podcast through the first 48 episodes, I guess, if you count Mondays, because the time to enter your choices really went through today.
Yes.
And we have a winner, and we will tell you who that winner is at the end of our program. We're going to look forward to it. It's going to be fun.
And maybe Vince McMahon will come out and say it doesn't matter. We'll announce it next week.
Exactly. And then we'll both be replaced by Matt Rotella and Derek LaRue.
And then everyone will go to sleep.
Pretty much. Anyway, tonight, of course, being the second...
By the way, we didn't... I don't think I told the good Matt Rotella story from my party this weekend. I guess we should get this in quickly. And actually, I think we need to have Matt on the 50th episode Spectacular next week, because we are a mere, 10 days away from that crazy bastard getting married. So
that is, yep. It is a week from Saturday.
Yeah, so we'll have to schedule to have him on Monday night as well in the big 50th extravaganza, maybe for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I did have a big party this past weekend, and Matt was in attendance, and due to a medical issue, Matt was walking around in white socks and sandals, which was tremendous. If you know Matt, it definitely fits the package.
Yes.
And, of course, playing off the White Sox theme, we were calling them Chicago all night. So that was pretty funny, I thought.
That is pretty funny. On another side note, as we mentioned, as we've talked about in the past, usually Justin and I have something playing in the background of these specific episodes, kind of get us in the mood. I have an ECW episode from 1996, and the reason I'm bringing it up, Justin, is because they're showing a wide shot of the ECW arena crowd. I think I saw our friend Adam Murray.
Oh, really?
It looked like him.
It's hard to miss.
Looked like him.
I don't know if I didn't think he had ever gone though. Well, maybe.
I don't know. This guy looked just like him. Big, snarly.
Yeah, don't forget he would have only been like 15 at that point.
Oh well, that's true. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure there were 3 dozen Adam Murrays in the.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably this guy that's on the shot right now looks like him too. So I guess you're right. Of course, tonight. Let's get to tonight, because tonight is an important night as always. It is the weekly walk through history. Mr. Zero, the keys, please. Thank you, sir. I got to turn the key, put in the remote.
Someday I'll remember to actually grab some keys so we can jingle them or something.
Yes, exactly.
You think I'd think of it by this point?
I know. I will put in the code, and I open it up because tonight it is, of course, the Vintage Vault, and tonight I feel a little patriotic, a little emotional tonight. Because the red, white, and blue will shine bright tonight. For it will always be stars and stripes forever.
World
Wrestling Federation Champion, Sergeant Slaughter, versus the Immortal Hulk Hogan. Face to face. It's WrestleMania!
Man, does anything get you jacked up for these old school pay-per-views like Vince McMahon screaming his brains out?
Exactly. Screaming out the main event, and of course the always seminal and iconic WrestleMania theme blasting in the background. For tonight, folks, here on the Vintage Vault, episode 49 of the Place to Be podcast, we bring you WrestleMania VII.
I love the Sergeant Slaughter growl in that open.
No one was better than the Sarge. The Sarge, we're gonna get a lot of love for the Sarge tonight because
overall we've been giving him a lot of love. I'm glad.
Yes.
He deserves it.
He deserves it, considering he was, almost his house was. When we get to that match later on, we're gonna get into a lot of what was going on behind the scenes. If you own the True Story of WrestleMania DVD or watched it on Netflix Instant Queue, when they talk about this pay-per-view, WrestleMania VII, Sergeant Slaughter did not have it easy for this 5 or 6 month stretch. And we'll get to that later on. It was not easy for the Sarge, and actually wasn't easy for Vince either. And we'll get to that later on. So, but this is a big show. A lot of stuff goes on here. A lot of emotion. It's a very emotional WrestleMania. As much as we love WrestleMania 6, and you and I love WrestleMania 6 for many reasons: the emotion, the crowd, the venue, the main event. A lot of the undercard, admittedly, is a little shaky in terms of maybe backstory and stuff. But this show may not be graded as high, and obviously throughout the night you all can make your own decisions on that, but a lot of the matches on this night just have so much emotion and so much backstory to them. And then not only do we have a great main event, but we will also have a seminal mid-card match that stands the test of time even today. So we got a lot to go tonight at WrestleMania VII. March 24th, 1991. From the Los Angeles Sports Arena in Los Angeles, California. Now, you're probably wondering two questions. Number one, why isn't this at the Forum, which was the more flashier indoor venue in Los Angeles? Of course, the Forum was where the Lakers played. The Sports Arena was where the Clippers played. And number two, I thought this show was supposed to be at the LA Coliseum, which was home, of course, of the Los Angeles Raiders and the USC football team. Well, we'll start with the Forum one. I don't know why Vince never did many shows at the Forum. A lot of cases it has to do with the layout of arenas for stages for pay-per-views and things like that. Now back then I didn't think it made that big a difference because he didn't have a big stage like he would do.
Part of it, I mean, he may have just had a deal, like in Chicago he had the deal with Rosemont.
Yeah.
He might have been had been locked into a deal because they had all the house shows at the Sports Arena, so it might have just been their building that maybe they had a going rate at that they were locked in for. So
that's what I
probably didn't want to piss off the building owner. So that's what I'm guessing.
Yeah, and it's a little smaller than the Forum. I don't know if this was a sellout. It was an even 15,000, which is probably about 3,000 less than the Forum. That's fine. But as I mentioned, also this show was, of course, being pumped up to be at the Los Angeles Coliseum, again, home of the '84 Olympics, home of the Los Angeles Raiders at the time, and home of the University of Southern California football team. Well, obviously going on at the time, or at least wrapping up, was Operation Desert Storm. We had pretty much kicked Iraq's ass pretty good by this point, so it was almost over. But there was apparently security concerns. Obviously, Super Bowl 25 that year in Tampa, we had a lot of security issues, a lot of planes and choppers overhead. But I think and it was kind of hinted on the WrestleMania DVD that ticket sales just were not great for that venue. I think they had maxed out. Well, I'll say they maxed out, but they had, maybe 8,000 or 9,000 tickets sold after a few weeks, and they realized, I don't think we're going to fill 100. Vince wanted like 104,000, which would have been ridiculous. So they moved it for a combination of security reasons, and they just couldn't sell it. And you can't blame them. No matter how great a product is, only in Japan do you see them sell out 105,000 seat venues. It's just impossible. It's just so many seats. So they moved to the Sports Arena, and that is where our venue takes place. And actually, I liked it was laid out. Remember, it had like the logo, and it had like the Stars and Stripes like banners on the on the sides of the decks, and they made it look very, very patriotic and very Americana. It was very they did a good job. They recovered well from the venue change. Again, 15,000. The buy rate 2.8. Now I know we've already gone through the buy rate equation. We're not going to get into it, but 2.8 is a little low for WrestleMania at this point. A little low. Expected it to be a little higher, but that's okay. Still a great show. Your announcers. Now this is where things get a little complicated.
Wasn't the actual, before we get to that, wasn't the buy rate here, or was it the gate? One of them was like a record. I think it was the buy rate.
Maybe it was the buy rate.
I think it was like the most. They say it during the show. It's like the biggest amount of fans ordering or something. So maybe it was buys. Yeah. Maybe it was the number of buys. I forget.
Yeah, maybe it was the number of buys. Now I didn't watch this show live. I actually remember watching it. I just didn't buy it that night. I ended up renting it afterwards. But I remember watching it through the squiggly lines of of my cable box. I was on the phone with my friend, and we were both watching it through the squiggly lines because neither of us could afford to get it. And my friend who usually hosts WrestleMania was on vacation, so I couldn't get both that and SummerSlam, so I had to pass on it live. But I did remember watching it through the squiggly lines on the cable box. So I did. Gorilla Monsoon, who of course is doing play-by-play, kind of carried me through the pay-per-view since I couldn't watch it. But
I'm pretty sure this is actually on Palm Sunday the year too, because I remember my parents, we had like family over while it was on. Like I didn't watch it, but I remember it being on.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that it was during the holiday. So that's probably another reason why I didn't get it. Now, first of all, before we do that, we start continuing the tradition of singing America the Beautiful. God Bless America. And on this night, it was Willie Nelson, who looked completely stupid with the foam belt on. I don't know why they even bothered to put that on. It was so dumb. So just had him put on like a WrestleMania t-shirt or something. No,
I mean, he looked honestly like a hobo that was out there singing.
He looked like a guy who here have a belt and $10. Yeah, really. A phone card and a case of beer. The announcer situation is a little shaky on this night.
I got my 2x4.
Boy, do we realize how shaky it really was. Gorilla Monsoon is your play-by-play guy, and he is play-by-play for the entire evening. But there is a rotating carousel of color commentators on this night. Roddy Piper, of course, who had been doing the pay-per-views the last 2 or 3, obviously was involved in a match on this card. We'll tell you what that match was in a little bit. So he wasn't sitting in the seat, so they had to rotate. The dark match, Coco Beware, J-Fave extraordinaire, didn't even make it on the show. Still gets a check, beats the Brooklyn Brawler. Wonder how much money Steve Lombardi got over the years for just pay-per-view dark matches. I'm sure it's a pretty penny.
I'm sure he did all right. I'm sure that,
I'm sure he wasn't hurting just for not being on camera.
And he was, he had Pat Patterson as the sugar daddy, so I'm sure he did okay.
Well, exactly. I'm sure they were at the. I'm sure they had the penthouse at the Beverly Hills Wilshire Hotel.
Hey, Axel, have you seen Sapphire Baby? No, I haven't, Dust. But we're all still looking for her.
And boy, did I wish he was still looking for her, so we wouldn't have to do this. As I mentioned, the color commentator carousel would be on this evening. No less than 1, 2, 3, 4 commentators. 4 people would sit in the seat of color commentary on this night. Actually, intellectually, it's more like 3 1/4. Our opener. It's amazing how much I like this match, and I don't know why. Our opener. I'm doing the odd-numbered matches, as you might expect. Justin will do the even. Our opener. Boy, do I feel bad for these 4 wrestlers. The Rockers, Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty, who had a pretty lousy end to 1990, but a pretty hot start to 1991 with that incredible opener at the Royal Rumble against the Orient Express, takes on the last 2 vestiges of the Heenan family in their last matches as members of the family.
No, I haven't, Dust, but we're all still looking for her.
Yeah, I wish he'd gotten lost so he couldn't find his seat. He would take on Haku and the Barbarian. Pretty good team, actually. Pretty awesome team, to be honest with you. And the reason that you keep hearing those dulcet tones, rather hear garbage rot, is that the first guy to sit in the seat with Gorilla Monsoon at WrestleMania VII was Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And my comment that who in their right mind thought, is it Kevin Dunn?
X stands
Was it Pat?
Maybe the homeless man Willie Nelson made the call.
Maybe the homeless man Willie, but somebody had the ridiculously stupid idea to have the drooling, snot-blowing moron to actually have to do color commentary. So we have to actually speak. We have to hear him speak. And not only do we have to hear him speak, but we have to hear him speak in an absolutely tremendous match like this. Thank God we had Gorilla, because if it was Tony Schiavone, I might have put a bullet in my head. The match is actually outstanding. 3 stars. The Rockers were on an absolute roll. They were, they were cruising along. They had that great match at the Rumble, and this match was no different. And you and I have already said that the Haku we already knew was just a guy you could just plug in there and he'll just get the job done. But man, the Barbarian... Are you going to say anything in the next 5 minutes? What was that? Was that even part of a song?
It was his theme music.
That part right there?
Yeah.
It was like a random 5 seconds of noise. You know what? I would rather have heard that song looped than having to actually hear him talk during this match. Am I going to hear you talk during this match?
Listen, tough guy. No, this is an awesome opener. It's definitely one of my favorite WrestleMania matches. Another one that's up there as far as best WrestleMania openers goes. Obviously, there's one that'll become the standard bearer, but this one's up there too. And the Rockers, as we talked about, were really, really hitting a huge stretch of greatness in early 1991.
Yes, and Shawn, I think, and honestly, I think a lot of it is Shawn Michaels. I think Shawn, this early on, 1991, was starting to figure out, I know I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was definitely, he was the alpha dog, but Marty could go. I mean, Marty was...
Oh, no, I'm not saying Marty couldn't go, but we all realized Marty had other things on his mind. He was a good wrestler, but by the end of the match, he was waiting for the after party. Shawn, on the other hand, I think started to finally figure out that, I think I need to be on my game if I'm going to go past, curtain jerking the main event, the big shows. So I think that's where we started seeing Shawn slowly begin to elevate. Slowly. And this match is a great example of it. And what is it about Haku and the Barbarian? You look at them, you're like, these two big meatheads. But you know what? Guys just knew how to get it done. Particularly the Barbarian. Like, Haku, you always knew was a pretty good guy in the ring. But Barbarian, over the last, 6 months, he's been great in the ring. Great. I mean, I don't think anybody would have expected it. And a combination with that plus the 2 high flyers brings to an outstanding opener to WrestleMania VII. The commentary.
I mean, there's a couple of my favorite spot. Yeah, Duggan's actually not. I don't know. I mean, I know you hate him, but I don't think he's actually even that bad in this match. And I'll give him this: he brings the energy. He gets things like hot. You know what I mean? Right out of the gate. I thought. But I love that one spot where Barbarian clotheslines them, and they both do with the 360 sell of the clothesline.
Yes.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then the finish was good too, where they hit the high cross body on Haku. So, yeah, great match. Not as good as Rockers Orient Express, but pretty damn close, I'd say.
Oh, absolutely. And again, and this was an even better accomplishment for the Rockers because they were dealing with 2 guys who obviously don't have the kind of work rate that Tanaka and Kato had. So,
Kato and Tanaka.
Yes. I wish you'll hear that voice later on too. I wish we could have heard it now. But so there's your opener. It's about 10.5 minutes, but it's a good opener. Crowd's hot.
Solid 10.
Yeah, the LA crowd is hot. And even he warbled his way through this 10.5 minutes of. You know what would have been great if he was standing next to Willie Nelson, because then it would look like 2 hobos. Anyway,
we didn't even mention he had the big Apollo Creed Uncle Sam outfit on.
Yeah, great. He's probably doing something outside of McDonald's or something beforehand. Did you get a secret request to actually play the end of the song right now? Because I don't think you ever have.
I thought it was just a good capper for it. But Bobby Heenan, of course, was at ringside with his boys.
Yes.
And
thank God
then he goes right over to the commentary table, and Duggan threatens to hit him, and then he stumbles off.
Yeah, threatens to hit him. I dare you, drooling idiot. So he got up and left with his little Apollo Creed porn outfit, and the Brain sits down. Little do we realize the impact this would make on future pay-per-view commentaries, as for the first time on pay-per-view, Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain would be together. Now, it's not uncommon. Of course, they obviously co-host Primetime, and they did a boatload of house shows.
And
Challenge. But that's different. When you're watching, the Warlord beat Sal G, or, that's one thing. But to see the two of them actually in a real legit show is something special. And tonight, on this night in LA, the two of them click, and they click from here on out. Why don't we? You actually get the second match, which is actually quite sad.
Yes, it is. I'd rather listen to the Duggan song than this depressing mess. But our next match is, of course, Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich against Dino Bravo. This is Dino Bravo, the man who was riding Earthquake's coattails last year. His final pay-per-view appearance. He'd float around the Cindies for the rest of the year before disappearing in early 1992. And he actually has a weird little comeback briefly. I think it's in early 92 where he actually went back to his black hair.
Yes, I remember that.
And it kind of, I think he was even pushed as a face on a couple episodes of Primetime. So, unfortunately, his life would end tragically in early 1993. He was involved in the black market, gang warfare in Canada over cigarettes or something like that, and he got gunned down at his house, mob style. So, his final record was 4-9, 0-4 at the Rumbles, 1-3 at Mania, 1-0 at SummerSlam, and 2-2 at Survivor Series. So,
yes,
that is all for the Canadian Strongman. We will not get to hear about his record-breaking weightlifting anymore. So
yes, well, it was without Jesse anymore. It was kind of tough to even talk about it anyway, but he is indeed gone. Kerry Von Erich, the Texas Tornado, would not be gone, not yet, but
mentally, I think he was gone.
yeah. I think actually Duggan was more coherent at this point than he was, which says a lot. The match is not very good. It's just 3 minutes of fill. When we get to our feedback later on, somebody mentions that this is like the last cookie cutter Federation era WrestleMania, and they're right.
Yeah, definitely.
Where you have exactly the number of matches.
Yep.
And you had to have guys on there just for the sake of having guys on there.
Right. I mean, you could have went without this, especially considering how long the show goes. But whatever. Got them a payday. I mean, Von Erich, for all his faults, was still very over at this point. And actually, I think it was around this time. I don't know if I've ever told the story on air. At the local civic center here, not Providence, but the town one where I lived. They used to every year have like a fair where they have all different booths come in, and they different mascots or whatever. And WWF would send guys. In 1992, they sent Tornado. So we waited in line for him, and he was like 2 hours late. So I'm sure he was just fucking probably stoned out of his mind, and they couldn't get him inside. So then he came in. And you could just tell how fucked up and how out of it he was. And he just looked at it. I have a picture with him. He's just like staring off into space. And, I was only 11, so I didn't really get it. But I heard my mom even saying he definitely did not look right. And then the next year was even better. In 1993, they sent Tatanka and Virgil. And Tatanka had all people around him and all gifts from fans. And Virgil was just sitting there lonely by himself. But we got a funny group picture with the both of them as well. So
even back then, he was all by himself.
Yes. Poor Verge.
Quite unfortunate.
So, but yeah, that's it for this match. Nothing much. 3 minutes. Tornado hits him with a discus punch and calls it a day. And unfortunately, that is all we see for the Canadian Strongman. Yes,
it is very sad. Of course, as we continue on tonight, we will let you know if you don't have this pay-per-view. I have the VHS copy, but of course, it's also on the WrestleMania anthology DVD set. But we'll also let you know what matches are on any separate VHS or DVD compilations as well. This match is not. I'm just making that point.
Are you sure it's not? It could be on the greatest Canadians.
Greatest match of Canadians and Texans that are
greatest match of Canadians gunned down in their homes.
Yes, Bugsy Siegel style. Our next match actually is a pretty good one. It's actually one of Mr. Rozzero's favorites.
Yes.
Involving two big-time powerhouse beefcakes right here. Not Brutai, but just two big dudes.
So the Haas fans' wet dream right here.
Yes, it is. It is a Haas fans' wet dream. It is his first singles pay-per-view match ever, and that is the British Bulldog.
Nope. Well, are we counting the Wrestling Classic?
Oh, well,
I mean, in our canon, personally, it's his first that we're going to talk about. But
yes, but no, he did. That's right. He did wrestle a singles match at the Wrestling Classic. He got crotched by Ricky Steamboat. Was it Ricky Steamboat? Yeah, it was Ricky Steamboat by accident. Taking on the Mighty Warlord in the battle of the full Nelson, or the battle of just two big power dudes. Why don't we hear from our competitors?
With me now, a superstar who claims he is going to collar the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. I'm referring to the Warlord, joined by his manager, the Doctor of Style, Slick.
Brother, did you say claim? Hey, how about guaranteed? Take a look at this man. It takes more than one dog to put this man down. It takes a whole pack of dogs. So, David Boy Smith, you get ready to pack it in because you're about to be fixed, brother. Because every dog knows that when you gotta go, you gotta go. There's no wrestler that has escaped my full Nelson. And you, Davey Boy, will be no exception to that rule. Oh, Davey Boy, remember, it's a dog-eat-dog world, so you be prepared. You're about to be devoured.
Let's go over to Gene Okerlund. You know, Davey Boy Smith, they say that every dog has its day. Is this the day for the British Bulldog?
I think it is, Mean Gene. Yes, it is the day for the British Bulldog, because the Warlord says, I can't break his full Nelson. I say I can and will. Sure, he's a big man, Mean Gene, but there isn't a man in the World Wrestling Federation I can't power slam and beat.
What's that? What? Now, wait a minute.
Winston wants me to tell the Warlord there is no bull in this British Bulldog.
I'll be doggone. Let's get back to ringside for more action.
oh, Davey Boy.
I forgot how tremendous those two promos are.
Yes.
For two completely different reasons.
Yes, it is,
Slick...
Gene.
One, because Slick is just tremendous in it.
Yeah.
And two, because I think Duggan and Willie Nelson and Taku and everybody else made more sense than Bulldog did in that promo.
Oh, he's just chatting up his new mascot that we have to talk about.
Yes, we will talk about. He debuts his newest member. They're old when they were a tag team. They had Matilda, but on this night in Los Angeles, the Bulldog debuts Winston. So he is the new companion for the Bulldog. I just like the fact that he said Warlord and Power Slum in the same. For those that don't know, Power Slam is spelled Puwerslum.
Power Slam.
Power Slum. That's in British lingo.
Yes, Gene. Yes, I think it is.
The match is actually very entertaining.
Yeah,
it really
definitely.
is. It really is. I've always, as we've said on past vaults, I've always been a fan of the Warlord. I always thought he was a moderately good heel and a big guy. Obviously, was jacked up on roids, but because he couldn't even lift his arms up. But I just thought it was a great match. Davey Boy really felt comfortable in the solo role, and I think overall it was a good sign. I mean, for Warlord, he wouldn't last too much longer, but for Davey Boy, I think it was the start of what would be a pretty good career as a solo guy. He got a good pop from the crowd, very good pop from the crowd, as a matter of fact.
Now, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure this match billed, like on primetime and stuff, was played up to be that the winner was the one who used his finisher. And then when you get to the actual show, they don't really talk about that. So I don't know if they dropped it, but I'm pretty sure building up to it, maybe one of our great listeners can help out with that. I'm pretty sure the build up to it was supposed to be a finisher, basically Power Slam versus the full Nelson.
Didn't you just watch the...
Yeah, I did, but I can't remember. I don't remember if it was...
The Superstars and Stripes preview or whatever it was.
Oh, that was a while ago we watched that, but I watched these Superstars building up to this show. And I know they were really pushing it. I could have swore that was an actual stip, basically, on the match. I mean, we basically get it anyway, because Warlord gets to full Nelson, but he doesn't have the fingers locked. Bulldog breaks it and then hits the muddy pole slam to put Warlord through the mat. And, of course, this is a great power slam because he hits it, and then the impact of the two men, Bulldog actually bounces up off Warlord and then falls back on him for the pin. So it was kind of cool.
Yes, it was. And, again, you had two big dudes who you didn't think would entertain you, and they did. So great match by both, and will not be the last time we see either of them together on pay-per-view. So But a win for the Bulldog, and the crowd is off the charts. I'll tell you something. You know, over the years, the California crowds do get criticized. Not necessarily in L.A., usually some of the burbs. Obviously, Anaheim gets ripped later on in the decade, but L.A. was pretty hot on this night. So kudos to the L.A. crowd. Usually they're latte sippers who show up in the third inning of Dodger games and leave in the seventh inning, but not on this night.
Shitty Laker fans.
Shit. Cool. Not this year. They're about to go to the finals. That was Magic.
No, we all know.
And Corey Ferreira wants me to talk about this.
No one wants you to talk about it. He just doesn't want you to feel bad that no one cares.
Hey, you had your little Charlotte Hornets hat when you were a little kid. So anyway, Bulldog wins, Warlord loses, but not the last we will see of the two of them on pay-per-view. Why don't you lead us into our next match, which is actually a very important one.
Yes,
one that would dictate the rest of the year.
Yep, and it brings the end of an era of one of the greatest, and in my mind, the greatest tag team in wrestling history, the Hart Foundation, defending their tag team titles against the Nasty Boys. We talked about the Nasty Boys at our last show. They jumped ship from WCW in late 1990. We saw Knobs of the Royal Rumble, and here they wrestle together. They earned this title shot by winning a pretty cool tag team battle royal on Superstars. So that's how they gained this title shot, seemingly out of nowhere. And of course, in other news, this is the Hart Foundation's final match. Jim Neidhart was actually released after this match because Vince was finally set to pull the trigger on that solo Bret Hart push. And he would do just that, but Neidhart would actually be brought back a little bit later in the year, as we'll see, in another role initially and then as part of another tag team. So, but as of now, Neidhart got his pink slip. The Hart Foundation's final tag team pay-per-view record, 5-6, 1-0 at the Rumble, 3-2 at WrestleMania, 1-2 at SummerSlam, and 0-2 at Survivor Series as a team. So
weird that they actually had a losing record. I can't believe that they didn't have. Now that I look at it, I can't believe they were not ever on a winning team at Survivor Series. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, they did. Anvil technically won in '89, but they weren't on the same team. So
right. So I guess they were on the losing end of both of those awesome tag team Survivor matches.
Yep, because the heels they lost in '87, and then the faces. No, they were still. Were the heels still in '88? No, they weren't.
No, their faces in '88.
So didn't Powers of Pain? Oh, maybe they did win that match then. Maybe that's wrong. Because didn't Powers of Pain? I think we always confuse ourselves when we figure out records. Because Powers of Pain won that for the face team, right?
Yeah, for the face team. Yeah, they were 1-1. So their record is actually 6-5.
Okay. Yep.
Because they were faces. Remember, they faced Demolition at SummerSlam.
Yep.
And they were faces by then. So
they were definitely in that match, right?
Yeah. So their record is 6-5.
Okay.
So they did finish above 500, barely though. And this was actually pretty big upset. I don't think anybody expected.
No, because heading in, you didn't really see the writing on the wall yet of the Bret Hart push because it had been teased so many times.
Right.
And the Harts seemed like such a dominant team. I mean, they haven't had too many title defenses since they won at SummerSlam, pay-per-view wise. And I know they had some on TV, but no one really seemed to be in their league at this point on the heel side. So the Nasty Boys kind of coming out of nowhere and stealing this match. Yeah, it definitely was a big upset. And this match, I think this one was actually clipped on the original Coliseum video version.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think it's the full 12 minutes because I've seen it reviewed a bunch of times where it's kind of not been the full match. The full match is actually pretty good. You wouldn't maybe fully expect it from these two teams, but I thought they meshed pretty well together. So it's a good 12 minutes. The Nasties stealing the win, Bobby celebrating, and Jimmy Hart going nuts in the ring. Of course, the match ends when they throw the motorcycle helmet into the ring and they hit the anvil with it, and he gets pinned. Obviously, they weren't going to have Brett get pinned. So,
right, exactly. And one thing about this match, well, to prove it, this match is on a few things. It is on a few copies of things. It's actually on two things. On WrestleMania's Greatest Matches Volume 2, which must be an old Coliseum video, and it is on Bret Hart's DVD. Bret Hart's story, Best There Is, Best There Was, Best There Will Be.
And that's the one he chose the matches for, right?
Yeah.
So you can tell he regards this match highly.
Yes, and so if you want to watch that match and time it, it's probably 12:08. I have the. Now here's a good question: is it clipped on the legacy copies that you and I have?
No. The legacy copies. I'm gonna go over this for the last time. The legacy copies are the pay-per-view versions.
Okay.
They didn't take the Coliseum. Those are the legit. They took them off pay-per-view and put them on. So it's got everything in those.
Okay. So just like buy rates, we're not going to mention this again.
Yes,
if you have the legacy set, you're good.
Yes, the original Coliseum video, I think, was clipped.
Okay. All right, so we won't bring it up again. We promise. Just like buy rates.
I'm not asking them to bring it. You don't bring it up again.
Oh well, there might be new listeners that may just want to, just may want to know. Yeah. That's all. Just want to know. And they probably wonder why we love Jim Duggan so much. It's him. Anyway, so it's on the Bret Hart DVD, and it's on WrestleMania's Greatest Matches Volume 2, which obviously must be a Coliseum video copy.
Yes, sounds it.
So, our next match, which is funny, this is one you probably should do because this is like one of your favorite matches of all time.
Actually, before we get to that match, I had a cool little clip.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Yes. This was such a huge upset.
Yes.
They celebrated like it was an upset. Take a listen.
And it's Jimmy Hart right there. And for the champions.
I love how she calls him Mr. Earthquake. It was a cool visual though, seeing the whole Hart family jumping up and down. Dino was in there, Quake, Mountie, and the Nasty. So it's kind of
neat. Yeah, it was. And didn't Knobs try to hump Marla Maples or something? Didn't she ran off or whatever?
Yeah, actually, we didn't talk about that. Do you want to talk about the celebrities, or do you want to wait till the main event?
We can wait till the main. We'll wait till the main event because the main event there's like a crap load of them, and we'll go over all of them. There were a lot of celebrities at this show, more than there's been in the last few. There were a lot of them. Most of them were just sitting in the audience. They weren't really there per se. But so the Nasty Boys are your new World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions. For now. Our next match is one that Mr. Rosero thinks of very fondly. Probably because the build was good. We've talked about it step by step here on the Vintage Vault. And now it comes to a head. It is Rick the Model Martel taking on Jake the Snake Roberts in a blindfold match. Now, the stipulation is both men they look like velvety sacks or bags put over their heads, and they have to wrestle with that. So,
and now this is a cool little tidbit. Leading up to the show on the Superstars and Stripes Forever special that aired the week before, they had a test blindfold match with Martel taking on my man Coco Beware. And it was pretty neat. Little piece of heel chicanery. Coco put his mask on, Martel ripped his off and just beat the shit out of Coco. And then he put the mask on finally and put him in the Boston Crab. So it was a good little heat building, kind of playing up, Martel may have the edge here. So,
I've been a big fan of this whole run by Martel and Jake. Again, a nice emotional storyline that fits perfectly for both men. I don't think you could have carried it either way. And the match, this is interesting because this was one of the matches. Again, Justin and I have known each other for quite a number of years, and this was one match that after a while he finally got me to like. I was never a big fan of this match at first. And, I thought the whole storyline of not being able to see and all this stuff, it bored me. I couldn't get into it. But I have to give my PIC credit because he got other aspects of this match in my head and got me to like it a little bit more. So I applaud you for that because you kind of got me to like this match more than I did before. And explain to the listeners why, because it's actually a pretty good explanation, a pretty good reason why when you watch this match, look at it from this perspective and you'll enjoy it a little bit more.
Well, you can't look at it as a wrestling match, a work rate match, or anything like that. The whole crux of the feud was Martel had blinded Jake. So, behind it, you had to have a gimmick that kind of paid off on that. Jake had, recently regained his vision, and he put a clause in the contract that Martel didn't see. That said that it would be this blindfold match because Jake wanted Martel to know what it felt like to be in the dark. The match, yes, probably appealed more to the live crowd because it was meant more as an audience participation match, but I like the psychology of it. Jake is one of the few guys that could probably really make this work from the face side because of the way, the sympathy he had with the crowd and everything else. And Martel is probably one of the few heel guys because he was very over animated. So he kind of played up that whole vaudevillian act pretty well, having the blindfold on. I just, it's only 8 minutes. It's pretty inoffensive. They play to the crowd a lot. Martel gets his hand on him, gets some shots in, and then Jake, the whole story is, can Jake lock the DDT? Martel kept slipping out. And then he finally hits it, and then he needs the crowd's help to find Martel to pin him. So I've seen this match get negative stars. Oh, it's so bad. I just don't see it. I think it's fine for what it is. It was meant to blow off this feud that was based around, it wasn't a blindfold match for shits and giggles. It actually made sense within the feud. So,
right.
I'm definitely cool with it. I'm not gonna say it's a 5-star, classic, but for an 8-minute gimmick match meant to blow off a hot feud, I think it was fine.
Yeah, and you again you kind of got out of my head what was in my head at first, which was, there's not much going on. They're walking around and not doing much, and but looking at it from that perspective, it takes a very smart ring general, intellectual type wrestler to pull off a match like that without totally screwing the pooch. And I thought it was tremendous effort by both Ricky Martel and Jake the Snake to make this match really add a lot of drama and intrigue and psychology, because you're dealing with two master psychologists, and I think that's what covers it. I don't think it could work with anybody else, because Jake could bring the emotion of a match without really having to do a whole lot, and that's not to say that Jake's a bad wrestler. He certainly isn't, but this was a case where he didn't really have to do much in the ring to really get the crowd on his side. Mm-hmm. And like I said, you hit the nail on the head. He got the audience to help him out, and that kind of showed that he was still at the top of the popular food chain.
Yeah, and the crowd wasn't flat for this match. So to me, it did its job.
Yes. So Jake the Snake, and the DDT was pretty stiff. He knocked Martel out pretty good. And then on the capper, he destroys the atomizer. He destroys the arrogance bottle, and then Martel gets chased off by Damien. So. And of course, big win for Jake. Jake finally wins a big WrestleMania match. Took a while, but... And
he would undergo some serious changes before the next time we see him.
Yes, and at first you wonder why, but boy do you get into it soon, and we'll get there. So, yes. But the last big win at WrestleMania for Jake the Snake. Big win. You were up next, my friend. What do we got? What do we got here in the hit parade? Well, you listened to the Nasty Boy celebration, which actually took place after this match.
Yes. Yep.
So, just want to let people know that
our next match is legendary debut.
It begins the road to history.
Yep, and that is of course the WrestleMania debut of The Undertaker taking on the Phenom Jimmy Snuka. At this point, Taker was still pretty much an unstoppable monster, but Snuka, you thought maybe would give him a battle. But you figured Taker would come out on top. The big news here, though, is that Taker debuts as new manager, Brother Love. We'll get to that in a moment, what happened to him, but he's no longer in Undertaker's corner. In February, he had brought out Taker's new manager, Paul Bearer, played by William Moody, more known by the name of Percy Pringle, who was big in World Class, Mid-South, and a little bit in the AWA, big-time heel manager down there. So he was brought in here in February by Brother Love. He debuted on the Brother Love show. And, of course, he had the ghoul makeup and carried the urn and all that stuff. So that's where the Undertaker character really hits, where what we would grow to know him as starts here. So
exactly. And I remember it being pretty cool because, again, watching some different shows when I was a kid in the late 80s, I remember Percy Pringle in World Class. He had that faction with the Dark Patriot and a couple other stiffs. But I remember him with his blonde hair and his black jacket with the gold stars on it, and he was, the typical charlatan redneck manager. But this was very, very different. And now at this point, you see that the Undertaker is going to be something special. And
straight here at WrestleMania 7 for that man right there, The Undertaker.
There you go. The beginning of an era began on this night in LA. And, hey, the guy originally called the Phenom puts over the guy that will forever be the Phenom. So, Undertaker, 1-0. And the start of a long and, I was going to say distinct, but a long and legendary list of foes vanquished. Obviously, the quality of foe goes up. Nothing against, Superfly, one of my first favorite wrestlers as a kid, but obviously he was fodder here for the dead man. So the Undertaker, 1-0 at WrestleMania. But when it comes to pure emotion, and when it comes to really grabbing at your heartstrings from so many different ways and so many different angles and so many different people, I don't think anything beats what we're about to talk about. Top to bottom, the next half hour may go down as one of the most emotional half hours matches and post-match in the history of WrestleMania. Our next match, career versus career. Although it's not called that then, it was called a mere retirement match. But it pits the Macho King, Randy Savage, Sensational Sherry, the Queen by his side, taking on the former, well, they're both former, but this is the immediate former World Wrestling Federation champion, as Vince calls him, the Ultimate Warrior. Of course, as Justin and I said in the last Vintage Vault, back at the Rumble in Miami, thanks to that stiff scepter shot to the skull, the Undertaker, we'll get to him at Savage is something else going on later, but the Ultimate Warrior loses the World Wrestling Federation Championship to Sergeant Slaughter. Well, of course, that was not going to go unpunished. So these two went back and forth, until finally this match was booked, but obviously no title on the line. This needed something juicy. So, their careers were on the line. I got to be honest with you, Mr. Rozzero. Did not have high expectations for this match. I honestly didn't. I didn't think it was going to be very good at all.
Really?
I
not
didn't
good
think
at all?
No, not good at all, but I didn't think Savage would be able to do something with him. He's different than Hogan. Hogan and Warrior had similar styles, so I could understand them kind of meshing together, but I wasn't sure if Warrior could have kept up with Savage's pace. So I was a little leery going in that this match was going to be any good. I was a little leery, I got to be honest.
Wow.
Thank God I was dead wrong. Because this may go down once again and again. We ripped the guy. He's got nonsensical promos. He's a complete lunatic. But on the big friggin' stage, once again, the Ultimate Warrior delivered. Nobody can take that away from him. You can take away the fact that his promos are ridiculous or anything else. But you cannot take away from the fact that when the chips were on the table and the world was watching, the guy delivered. It's amazing. I don't know how he did it and why he wouldn't admit it or do it more. I just don't get it. Then again, on the other side of the ring, he was looking at a bona fide superstar and a guy who could wrestle a can of Play-Doh. And it ended up being probably one of the 10 greatest matches in the history of WrestleMania.
Oh yeah, easy.
Now, honestly, you didn't watch this live, right? Obviously you didn't.
No, I saw it pretty shortly after.
Yeah, you probably watched it on tape. Did you have any expectations? Do you remember having any expectations?
I don't think that was really my mindset at the time.
Yeah,
honestly.
you were younger, so
I was
yeah,
only
you probably
10 and a half, so I wasn't really
thinking
too into.
Like
I wasn't the Dave Meltzer-esque 35 that you were. So I didn't really have.
I looked better back then than he did, even though we were the same age. But anyway,
I didn't really have that. In my mind too much. I was just, looking forward to the match, and you assumed, Warrior would win, and you didn't know how legit the stip would be, and they'd hold to it for a little while. Obviously, not for too long, but still seemed like a pretty legit stip. And of course, before we get to that, let's talk about what happened on a very memorable episode of Superstars. I think it was actually 1 or 2 weeks before the show. Ultimate Warrior was on the Brother Love show, and of course, Brother Love was a pretty close confidant of Macho King over the last couple of years, always kind of on his side. Him and DiBiase were like the two guys that Brother Love was kind of always associated with prior to The Undertaker, of course. Of course, Brother Love was taunting him on the Brother Love show, about his career ending and everything else. So Warrior says he's not going to wait till WrestleMania, he's going to end a career right now. He drags Brother Love to the ring, beats the crap out of him, drops him with the splash, the press slam and the splash. Then he goes back and destroys the Brother Love set, and that brings an official end to the Brother Love show.
Yes.
So that would be that going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it would make a brief resuscitation in 1995, but
yeah, and
for all intents and purposes, the Brother Love show that we grew up with is now done.
Is done, exactly. But the match is unbelievable. It's well paced. One thing people got to give the Ultimate Warrior credit for. The guy knew, based on the type of opponent he had, how to wrestle his match. And, this was not Hulk Hogan. This was a very different kind of wrestler than Hulk Hogan. And sure enough, Warrior knew what to do. And the only thing that annoyed me here is I don't know what the future of... I don't know what Savage's future was going to be anyway, but to try and put the point across of the show, Savage dropped not 1, not 2, not 3, not even 4, but 5 elbows off the top rope.
Yeah,
5.
Now, obviously, they thought he was done at this point. So they figured, why not bury his finisher? I honestly, probably to the surprise of some, have no legit problem with this because it just made sense. This guy's career is ending. He's doing all he can to keep this guy down. And Warrior really portrayed as an unstoppable monster. Of course, the match going 20 minutes. There's a lot going on within this match, various stories. The first one is, as the entrances are happening, Bobby Heenan and his super sight just happens to pinpoint at this point in the show, Miss Elizabeth sitting in the crowd. And it's a pretty funny spot, actually. Him and Gorilla sitting there talking, and you see him start to squint and peer out into the crowd, and he just happens to notice her now. It's pretty funny. So Liz is at ringside. We haven't seen her in a while, really, since the summer, that one Superstars, I think we said in June. So since then, she hasn't really been around.
Right.
So a big return here by her. Also during the match, we have the epic segment where Warrior wipes Savage out, and it has him beat. He could have easily pinned him. But then he starts talking to his hand, staring at his hands and talking to the skies.
Yep.
And Gorilla starts pontificating, wondering if the gods are telling Warrior his time is done and he needs to walk away. And Warrior just seems very confused, and he actually starts to leave the ring. And you wonder if he's going to walk out on his career right here. They never really explained this. I guess it was just meant to be that Warrior's just insane and was talking to the gods above. I don't know. But Savage ends up jumping him as he gets back in the ring to finally gain control. And then from there, of course, he'd hit the 5 elbows. A lot of good near falls. Warrior kicks out. Hits him with the splat. He hits him with the gorilla press and the splash, right? And then he hits the 5 tackles or 4 tackles.
Yep. And every one of them knocked Savage out of the ring.
Yep, or 3 tackles. It was 3 tackles. Yeah, everyone knocks him out of the ring, and then he finally rolls back in, and Warrior pins him with 1 foot on his chest. So pretty epic way to go out. I mean, if Savage really was done at this point, this would have been quite the way to go out.
Yeah, that's true.
Bobby and Gorilla were priceless, of course, here. And the crowd goes nuts for Warrior winning. So any more comments on the match itself before we get to the post?
Well, I tell you, it's a little under 21 minutes, about 20:46. And I just, again, we ripped the guy's promos. We ripped the fact that he was kind of a flake. But when it came to the big stage, the Ultimate Warrior always delivered. Can't fault the guy. He really can't. Always delivered when he had to.
And his feuds for these Mania matches have all been very good. They're not just like one-off matches. I mean, they've all been well-built, well-drawn-out feuds. The Rude match or the Hogan match, and now, of course, this was his crowning moment as far as feuds go.
Right. But yeah, that's it for me on the match. It's just a great match, and it's on no less than. Ready for this? I think this might be a record. It's on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 compilations.
One for each elbow.
Exactly. WrestleMania: The Greatest Hits, which is probably a tape. Best of the WWF WrestleMania. Obviously, that's those old Titan Sports Coliseum video collections. And 3 DVDs. The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. Obviously, it's on the Macho Madness, the Ultimate Randy Savage collection, and the True Story of WrestleMania, the DVD I was talking about earlier, that came out earlier in the year. So it's on 5, one for each elbow, 5 compilations, 2 VHSs, and 3 DVDs. But that's not all of it. It's not all of it. We don't just move on. Justin mentioned who Bobby Heenan saw in the audience. And, Sensational Sherry must be devastated now. She manages no one else. She lost her meal ticket.
Yep.
And then this ensued.
Well, before that.
Oh, okay.
We said off that part. But Sherry gets to the ring and starts kicking Savage while he's down.
She's furious. She's furious. She's lost her sugar daddy. So she's berating him, berating Savage, kicking him, stomping on him.
And then out of nowhere, Miss Elizabeth makes her return to active in-ring activities.
Yes.
Hops in the ring, grabs Sherry by the hair to a huge pop, and just whips her to the floor. And then, slowly kind of helps Savage up. And then Savage doesn't know what's going on. He shoves her away, and that's where we pick up.
Elizabeth with her arms outstretched. Tears flowing down. Yeah. Look around. Everybody behind us in the whole ringside area crying. Listen to the ovation. For Randy Savage and Elizabeth. What a woman and what a man. A moment in history. This is better than a love story. If you like this kind of mush, I love it. Now why don't you get in there and hug him? Look at that. People crying in this capacity crowd. Look at that. Maybe her shoes are too tight. A true showing of emotions here by Elizabeth has brought it out in this capacity crowd. Must have had the chili dog with onions. Elizabeth now holding the rope for Randy. No, wait. Not this time. He's turning into a big softy.
Now, of course, a couple of things I want to mention. One is the 2 tremendous fans. Of course, the one woman with the big puffy hair bawling her eyes out. And the classic dude with the glasses and the green turban and pink cape on. Just bawling like crazy. Is this tremendous stuff. And, what really made this whole thing connect was that this relationship and story had been going on for like 5 years, really, since 1986 when they debuted this whole Savage Elizabeth dynamic. Where he was overprotective of her.
85. Actually, even goes back to 85.
Yeah. 86 is kind of where it really started with George Steele and all that stuff.
Right.
Him being overprotective of her and kind of being, smacking around here and there a little bit. And then all the stuff with the Mega Powers and her turning and going with Hogan and being against Savage at WrestleMania 6. And, for them to reunite here and then of course, the beautiful symmetry of Savage holding the ropes up, open for her instead of her for him, was really great. And you could really argue that Savage's best career move was retiring at this point, because he would have, coming off of this, some of his best, hottest, most emotional storylines from here on out.
I tell you, considering what has happened in 2011, this is a tough moment for a lot of us as fans, and because this is, as you mentioned, this is one of the greatest moments in the career of Randy Savage, and again, because the guy just knew. He knew how to, regardless of what side of the line he was on, and as we'll document at the next pay-per-view, when he would go to commentary, he actually would still act like a heel. But, it didn't matter at this point. This is very different than 1988 when he won at WrestleMania 4. That was a different, you knew he was a good guy, but it was just different. Yeah, he was a good guy, but everybody still loved Hogan, and you weren't really sure. This is different. I mean, the fans are just in love with the guy and in love with this couple. And Elizabeth back in the 4 just makes it that much better. It's truly, truly one of the greatest moments in the history of professional wrestling. Just seeing this happen, because not often can you see a character you absolutely so hated, and in the span of 30 minutes, now you want to give him a big hug. Not many people can do that. And that was just the greatness of Randy Savage. That this match just shows that. And it makes you even more sad that he's gone. But it's just one of the greatest moments in the history of the business. And the whole thing, top to bottom. You and I both gave it 4.5 stars. Some people give it 5, and that's cool. But it truly is one of the greatest moments in the history of the business. But, unfortunately, he's gone as of now. In storyline, that is it. You saw the last match of Randy Savage. Very sad.
Yes.
What a way to go. Obviously, we're going along with it, but we'll talk more about these two. We will not see the last of these two, of course. When we open the vault next week, more on the first couple of the World Wrestling Federation. But for now, the Ultimate Warrior wins, and you almost you forgot he was even in the match. You almost forget by the end of the match, oh yeah, Savage lost. You don't even remember it.
Yeah, honestly.
You really don't remember it. But, again, I hate to be nostalgic. I don't want to schmaltz it, but let's be honest. 2011 will be remembered as the year we lost the Macho Man, and it's moments like this that really make you upset that he's not with us anymore. And, he was probably going to be back with the company. And, I mean, I'll continue to mention these as we get along over the next couple years with him on camera. But this one might be his greatest moment on camera. Until maybe a year from now. But it's a moment that'll never be forgotten by any fans, male or female. I got female fans, or friends of mine that are women that were fans back then going, yeah, I cried too. Who didn't? Well, guys probably didn't. But what woman that was watching this pay-per-view didn't cry? I mean, it's the way Savage was. He knew how to get the pathos out of fans. God bless you, Macho. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. We're at the halfway point of the show. That was pretty much the halftime, and trying to get the fans back in was going to take a lot. But we still got a lot of emotional stuff to come, and of course we have our main event. Our next match, though, why don't you mention this one? But to me, it's a perfect example of the dynamic between Gorilla and Bobby that would never be surpassed. But let them know about. Why don't you open up this one? This is a memorable one for different reasons.
Of course, yes. It is the another seminal WWF Tag Team's End of the Road. And that is the end of the road for Demolition, of course. This is the bastard version of Demolition. We saw the real Demolition die at WrestleMania VI into SummerSlam 90. But here we have the team of Smash and Crush back reunited with Mr. Fuji. Doing whatever they can to help gain a little extra heat on them. Their famous theme music is now gone. They had a kind of like a Halloween-y theme song type going for them. They do not have the masks here. They had worn the masks a little bit in the fall and winter, but here they're gone. So that team, of course, is taking on the team of Tenryu and Katao out of Japan. Both of them were part of the SWS promotion, I believe, at this point, and they had a working relationship with WWF going on.
Right. And the match itself is really nothing, and you could definitely tell that they put this thing to bed. Demolition is dead after this, and Tenryu and Katao get the win. Pretty nice power bomb by Tenryu on Smash, and that's pretty much the end of the line for pretty much one of the 4 or 5 greatest tag teams in the history of the WWF, if not all of wrestling. But this match is not known for really the match itself. It's for the first of what would be many excellent pay-per-view commentary exchanges between real-life best friends Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. I think we just have to say it.
We're still digging? Nah, I thought it was a setup.
Why don't you first talk about the match that really should have happened here?
The match that should have, the match that should have happened here should have been the final burying of Demolition by the greatest team in all of the world. And that is, of course, the team of Hawk and Animal, the Legion of Doom. My Legion of Doom. They should have wrestled Demolition on this show and put them to bed. Instead, we'll see Hawk and Animal later on, but I don't know why they just didn't do this. It just makes no sense. Instead, the Legion of Doom do something that really upsets my PIC. We'll get to that in a few matches, but I don't know why Demolition was booked against this random Japanese tag team. Now, again, nothing against Tenryu or Katao, both exceptional in-ring performers, and we'd see Tenryu again later on down the line in a pay-per-view lore, but I don't know where Vince decided to just grab these 2 random Japanese guys and put them in the ring against Demolition.
Well, like I said, it must have to do with just that relationship they had with SWS at the time. So that was probably part of the deal that they would have a couple of guys come on and get a win here, especially honestly, over a name team. While in America we didn't think it was a big Demolition, but maybe just a name they could sell over in Japan.
Maybe it was trying to get maybe Vince was trying to get some extra buy rate stock from overseas. That's possible. Because I could have seen Tenryu and Katao face Power and Glory and probably had a pretty good match. Maybe even better than this, but alas, it did not happen. But I take it your search is fruitless.
Yeah, I got the match here, but I can't find where it is in the match. Okay. I should have done a little better pre-production this afternoon, made to find it.
Okay, that's all right.
Of course, the line is Bobby says, "What's his name?" Katawel, and I think he even says like hand towel, and Gorilla says Katao. He's like, "You'd have trouble if his name was Fred," and Bobby says, "Fred, that's a funny name for a Japanese wrestler." And then, of course, we get the "Will you stop?" classic from Gorilla.
Yes, the infamous Fred Katao. Yes. Fred Katao, a name that you could leave when you're trying to hide from someone. You could put that at the you can get a reservation at a hotel with the name Fred Katao, and everyone will know who you are. And Demolition is officially done. That's it. Crush will come back within the next year and a half or so.
He comes back, and I actually just watched his debut on a Superstars. It's May 9th, 92.
Okay, so he's back in about a little over a year.
He does vignettes before that, but that's his in-ring return.
Smash will be back, in about 4 or 5 months?
Nope. Yeah. Late 91.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 months in a completely different character.
Yes.
So that is it for Demolition. Any final thoughts, my friend? I know it's sad.
It is a sad end. They were my first team that I really latched onto as a fan, and of course we've talked about the great moments, especially WrestleMania VI.
Yes.
So it was very sad to see them come to an end.
Yeah, it was. But this obviously was not the Demolition that we grew up loving. And they're done. Our next match is our second of 3 championship matches. And this one is for the World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Championship. And after plowing through the members of Bobby Heenan's family, the big boss man finally gets a crack at the crown jewel And that is, of course, your Intercontinental Champion, Mr. Perfect.
Mr. Bobby the Brain Heenan.
You know
Gentlemen,
something, Shorty? Here we are, humanoids, in sunny California, Los Angeles to be exact. And you've probably been reading in the papers and everybody's been seeing on TV. This is the home of the great LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department. And you've all seen what transpired out here about how some little ham and egger was hiding in the bushes with his little home video camera, and he happened upon this incident and took the pictures of it. Well, I've got a treat for you, because you see, I am going to give it to you for zip. All you got to do is get off that rented sofa with the spring sticking up, go over and push your VCR button on play. We'll furnish the cameraman, and then you can see our brand of justice the way Mr. Perfect is going to dish it out to that Barney Fife, the big boss man. And I will guarantee you this, that you will not find Mr. Perfect on his back giving the big boss man 56 free swipes at me, boss man, because I'm cool. I'm the Intercontinental Champion. I'm cool as a cat, boss man. Most people in my position might be on edge, thinking they've got to climb into the ring with a 300-pound maniac. Well, big boss man, I'm the champion, Intercontinental Champion. I have all the tools it takes to be a champion. I have Bobby the Brain Heenan in my corner. I have the right body. I have the right looks. I have the ability. I am what I say I am. And I say I'm... They're saying it. They're saying it. There's only one. You're looking at him. Let's go. Come on.
It's a great promo.
Yeah, classic. You know, I always jump to play Eddie Perfect, Heenan, Rude, like any of those guys' promos.
Yes, tremendous. Boss Man, ridiculously over still. Probably getting as many pops, babyface as Warrior or Hogan. But looking back, the match ended probably about as well as it was going to end. Boss Man was not Intercontinental Championship material. I hate to say it like that, but there was no need for... He's one of those guys, kind of like, I hate to use him as an example, but like Duggan and those guys who never really needed a belt to get over. And so Boss Man wins by DQ. Decent match. About 10.5 minutes. Good action. Boss Man was in a good groove in the ring here. Perfect's perfect. I mean, we really can't say anything bad at all. And that was it. This was the end. This was the end for the Brain.
Yes. I guess we'll wait till SummerSlam to really get into that.
Yeah, but this is his official final match.
Yes,
as a manager. And he's been with the company now for
84?
Yeah. Yep, he was there in 83. He was managing Bockwinkel in AWA when he was feuding with Hogan. So, yeah, he came, I think, with that whole exodus of Hogan and Mean Gene and that whole mass exodus of leaving Minneapolis and coming to New York, as they say in the industry lingo.
Now, I want to talk quickly about, too, why maybe it was a good idea not to have Boss Man win the title here. Similar to like we talked about WrestleMania 4, where it kind of would have been buried to have Beefcake win the IC title on that show. Mm-hmm. I think the same thing here. On a card with 14 matches, you already had a tag title change. You already had a crazy emotional, big-time storyline. And you still have a mega main event left to come with the title on the line. It probably would have been kind of lost in the shuffle for Boss Man to win the IC title here. Plus, with the guy that they're grooming, of course, in Bret Hart that we've talked, it looked to maybe be jumping into that mix. Perfect had already had one short-term loss. Would it really have helped to have another one at this point? Right. Maybe if he never lost the Tornado, you could say, all right, maybe a quick 2-month run for Boss Man would have been okay. But I think we really needed Perfect at this point to kind of rebuild the legitimacy behind the title. So as much as the storyline really called for Boss Man to win, he gets the last laugh here. He wins by DQ, and then he runs him off. And, of course, you didn't mention Andre, did you?
I did not mention Andre.
Okay, so Andre had been helping Boss Man. He had been antagonizing Heenan and the family the weeks leading up to the show. On the Superstars and Stripes Forever special, Andre and Boss Man kind of had a little moment in the aisle where they shook hands. And, of course, Andre comes out during this match when Heenan keeps interfering. And he actually almost cost Perfect the title. He grabs the title belt and clocks Perfect with it in the head. And he falls back, and Boss Man almost gets the pin. So this is Andre's final WrestleMania appearance. He has one more WWF television appearance, but as far as WrestleMania goes, this is it. So him and Boss Man walk out together. Kind of cool moment.
Mm-hmm. Or, well, it's more like Boss Man walks and
Yeah.
Andre kind of hobbles.
Yeah.
It is most definitely clear. Now, Andre apparently did have surgery, so that was one reason why he was on crutches. But
Right.
let's be honest, he would never be off crutches again.
No, I mean, like we had talked about the Rumble, he was scheduled to actually be in that match. I don't think they realized probably just how bad a shape he was in.
Yeah, Andre is just not looking good here. And I mean, obviously he lives another couple of years, but it's very sad to see such a mountain of a man, such a hero to all of us as wrestling fans, just in that state. But guys get old. What are you gonna do? And he had that whatever that gigantitis or whatever that disease is, and it was just hitting his joints, and he just couldn't move. But it's good to see him on camera anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unfortunate that he looks like that. So Boss Man gets his revenge on the Heenan family, but Mr. Perfect does retain his precious Intercontinental Championship.
And now, before our next match, Mean Gene saunters out into the crowd where a plethora of celebrities were sitting in a little cluster. And we have a couple funny little interviews, so here's the first one.
Hey, Winkler, come on in. I know you've got everybody here for this one. It's got to be exciting for you and the family alike.
I want to tell you, I'm so happy that the Ultimate Warrior got his ultimate win.
I'm glad Henry Winkler made it all the way out, just so Gene could ask him about it, and he can let us know that he is so happy that the Ultimate Warrior got his ultimate win.
Ultimate win, yes.
That one always is a favorite of mine. And, of course,
yes.
Capped by this piece of awesomeness by the man behind the green of the Incredible Hulk.
You really see superhero in light in front of your eye, and it's so entertaining. It's better than the Olympics, the circus, anything put together, especially my kids. They go by the line, they honk, honk, honk. Terrific. Thank you, Lou Ferrigno. Of course, Henry Winkler, Chuck Norris, and Donald Trump. Folks, it's a family affair. Now let's get back to ringside for more action. All the celebrities turning out here for Wrestlemania VII. And you'll be happy to know this is a history-making event, Ray. And it amazes me how Lou Ferrigno can talk with 15 pounds of crackers in his mouth.
one of the great Bobby lines of all time.
Yeah, well, he was about as coherent as Jim Duggan anyway, so. Poor Lou.
Oh, my kids, I go.
Oh, God. That was tremendous comments from two clearly cool celebrities of the early 90s.
Yes. I'm so happy that the Ultimate Warrior got his ultimate
win. Yes, that is a favorite of us in the Place to Be world.
Yep.
That
so,
quote.
Of course, as you heard in the background, our next match features the face-turned Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Yep.
Facing off against the next member of the Jimmy Hart family stable that he wants to conquer, and that is Earthquake. Not much of a match here, really, just 3 minutes. Pretty innocuous. Quake squashes him. Kind of gets his heat back after, jobbing at the hands of Hogan over the last few months. So, trying to build him back up a little bit. And, of course, we'll see him take quite the new direction over the summer.
Yes.
But, yes. Here, nothing much doing, really. So
no, it wasn't. And I just can't get over I can't believe that Bobby actually came up with a number like 8 pounds of crackers. That's a lot of crackers, for God's sakes.
Yeah,
Jesus. But, again, just a little bit here and a little bit there, and you're just seeing the slow chemistry. And no, I'm not acting as if Bobby and Gorilla have never done. But again, it's one thing to do challenge and just goof off while some poor stiff's getting squished by some big stud. It's another thing to be on a big stage at the big pay-per-view, the biggest pay-per-view, a biggest show, and to be that and to just click like that is just. And that was good because I really did feel like over the last year Gorilla was kind of lost and without Jesse really didn't have that perfect guy to work with. And again, I'm not slamming Piper at all, but Bobby just knew how to do it right. And going a different angle than Jesse did actually made Gorilla have to kind of adjust his style, and it worked for the better. Clearly,
of course, I guess too, maybe we could just mention quickly, leading up to this show, a mysterious masked man started messing with Earthquake. His name, of course, in lore would become the Mariner or Furface. That was this guy in a mask, ran down after Earthquake squash matches and hit him with a series of headbutts and actually knocked him out cold. So it seemed like it was going somewhere, but it never really does. The Mariner / Furface would quickly vanish into history. And of course, the man behind that fur face was Brutus the Barber Beefcake, who thought maybe he was ready to make a comeback, but as we'd see, he'd come back in a different role over the summer.
Brutus the Barber fur face.
yes. So one of his many identities from here on out. But
yes,
I just wanted to kind of mention that little tidbit because it's always something that I know people kind of laugh about.
So the Hammer turns face and then quickly gets dispatched.
Yes.
So Earthquake moves on. We move on now to our next match, which is about just as long as the next one, even shorter. And that pits the...
I've been watching you from afar for as long as I can remember.
greatest tag team in the world.
And never asked for it. This is love. This is more than a crush. Yeah, it was all a mental.
I can't even keep saying like that.
It's more than a crush.
The Duggan cuts are one thing because it's that same nonsense over and over. But anytime that whole this is more than a crush.
It's more than Bryan Adams' crush.
Oh God. Of course, I'm talking about the greatest tag team of all time and my continuing bromance with the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors. Here they take on...
I gotta find a way. Maybe Derek can do this. To do the Oh What a Rush and then into this song. That's really what we're gonna do.
That'd be the strangest combination I've ever heard in my life. Oh my God. But there was a little backstory here between the Legion of Doom and Power and Glory, their opponents. Power and Glory actually eliminated LOD from that aforementioned tag team battle royal that would end up winning, end up being won by the Nasty Boys, and they obviously cashed it in and became tag team champions earlier in the evening. So there's a little bit of backstory here. You also another tidbit. Paul Roma has since said in future interviews, if you remember, he had his arm was very heavily taped in this match. I'm not sure which one. I think it's his left arm. I think very heavily taped in this match. You can see Hercules grabbing the side of throughout the bout.
I think the song has you flustered. I think Legion of Doom has you flustered. No, Hercules. Roma had a torn arm injury, and Hercules had a torn groin. So if you watch the match, you can see Herc grabbing his leg throughout.
All right, I'm trying to read that, and it made no sense. I thought you were talking about Roma's leg. I don't know. I didn't even get that.
Also, he mentioned that Hercules was competing with a torn groin.
I kicked out his leg with his leg. Sorry, yes. I'm just seeing Hawk, and it's perfectly done. Reverse mohawk. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that may be a reason why this match was as short as it was.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, LOD dispatches Power and Glory, pretty much destroys them, much to the chagrin of my PIC because they might have got stiff. Maybe Power and Glory. They're no Nasty Boys. Does Power and Glory would they have fallen into this slot and beaten the Heart Foundation?
Well, it's possible, but with their luck, they both would have been injured. They probably wouldn't have been able to fight, unfortunately. So maybe Fred Katawal and Tenryu would have won the tag title.
So, in any event, Legion of Doom with their big win, just like a year earlier with the Heart Foundation at WrestleMania VI with their 52nd win over the Bolsheviks. Obviously, the Legion of Doom propelling themselves to the top of the number one contenders list for the tag team championships. More on that when we open the vault again. Our next match, you may intro, my friend, and this one actually also big storyline, big emotion heading in.
Yes, of course. The last time we saw these men, they were ending a long-time partnership, long-time friendship, and that's Virgil and the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Mm-hmm. Virgil finally broke free at the Royal Rumble. Roddy Piper then began training him because you remember Piper played a pivotal role in getting Virgil to dump DiBiase. So he played a pivotal role in that. He began training and preparing for this fight. And then it was on the 217 primetime that we had the classic interview with Piper and Virgil, and Piper was screaming at him, how do you spell man? And he's like, V-I-R-G-I-L. And then the following week, Virgil picked up his big first singles match win over Haku on Superstars, thanks to a little assist from Piper there. And then on the Superstars and Stripes Forever special, the week before the show, Piper and DiBiase had a really hot promo where Piper ripped off DiBiase's tearaway suit and began threatening him, saying, how he has all the money and Piper's supporting his kid, the usual Piper story. So then Virgil came out, got DiBiase's face, and forced him to the back. And then the final salvo came on the day before this show on Superstars. Ted DiBiase was facing off with jobber Kevin Greeno, and Virgil came down, distracted him, and DiBiase got counted out and suffered a pretty embarrassing loss there. So a lot of heat coming into this match. Fans waiting to see if Virgil would pick up the win. And actually, here is that seminal moment with Kevin Greeno. I think Fink makes it with his over-the-top announcement of Kevin Greeno as the winner.
Yes.
Kevin Greeno!
Greeno! Like he just won the Intercontinental title or something. Yes.
It was good stuff. But this whole build-up was excellent.
DiBiase,
Yeah.
how do you spell man? At WrestleMania, DiBiase, you spell man. V-I-R-G-I-L.
That's always
V-I-R. G-I-L.
Yeah, that was good.
Love the space
Good
in
stuff.
between. Yes. Unfortunately, the match was terrible.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but Virgil just couldn't. He did his best, but he just couldn't keep up with DiBiase, and there was a lot of interference going on, and the match just never really found a good flow.
And we should talk about Piper here too. Of course, the storyline explanation was that he had been in a motorcycle accident, but in real life he was having the first of many hip surgeries.
Yes.
Hip replacement surgery. So he's on crutches here at ringside. I think this actually goes along with what we talked about in the Boss Man match. The crowd and the storyline, everything was so hot for Virgil, and to have him, if he would have beaten DiBiase clean here and get the win and just kind of end things, would have been pretty anticlimactic. I think it deserved a better spot. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I'm kind of glad they did it the way they do, where they have it simmer over the summer and then have a big blow off at SummerSlam. I think it was good because I think here is match 12 on a 14-match card. Virgil getting a big clean win and ending the feud would have been kind of useless.
Yeah, I agree. And I wish the match had been better, regardless of the end. The match just didn't deliver. But again, it's at a spot in the show where nobody really was paying attention to that anyway. And obviously this feud would continue to percolate over the summer. And actually there'd be an added character to the mix. We'll get to that in the next vault.
Well, we can mention it here. You talk about Sherry?
Yeah.
Well, she debuts here with DiBiase.
That's true. She does come out tonight. That's true.
Yeah, she comes out. DiBiase, Virgil ends up winning by count out because Piper hooks the top rope with the crutch and DiBiase falls to the floor.
Right.
And then DiBiase comes in and, he's beating up Virgil. Piper comes in and then Sherry comes in out of nowhere, because you had wondered what she would be doing with Savage out. And she comes in and it's obvious new that she will now be with Ted DiBiase. And so then they beat the crap out of Piper, take his crutch and bash his knee in with it. So now Piper's, writhing on the ground. After DiBiase and Sherry leave, we have an awesome, unintentional, great moment. Piper's struggling to get to his feet and fight. There's a whole group of referees trying to help him out. And he's pushing them all away. And he grabs his crutch and just chucks it. And hits Danny Davis straight in the junk. And Davis just falls down in a heap. It's really funny. I feel bad for Danny Davis, but Piper just spikes the shit out of him with it right in the crotch. So if you're big into crotch shots, that's a good one. Check it out.
I totally forgot about that one. It's funny. So obviously to continue the storyline from earlier in the evening, Sherry needed a new sugar daddy, and she finds him with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. So she dumps Savage and moves on to a richer meal ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Our next match, the last of the undercard, is pretty much a throwaway, but it is another debut. Well,
no, we talked about him.
Not officially debut. It's the first time we see him on camera. Well, I don't know how to word this. The first time you see him if you're watching the show after the fact.
Yes.
I guess is the best way I could put it. The Mountie takes on Tito Santana in this match. The reason I'm saying that is because he did technically debut with the Royal Rumble. He faced Coco Beware, but on most versions of the show, except the one that's probably on the anthology, that match was cut out. In fact, it's not even on the. I don't know if it's on the anthology. It's not on the Coliseum video version. So I don't think you've ever seen it. Did we mention this in the last Vault? Was it on like a comp or something? Probably not, right?
No, I don't think so.
No, it's probably on nothing. So technically, his after the fact printed pay-per-view debut is right here, and it's a quick minute 20 squash to put over him as a nasty, evil, unfair heel, and of course his weapon of choice, which is the electric cattle prod, which comes into play throughout the summertime. Did you like this character immediately?
Oh yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
He was really, really funny. I mean, if you watch some of these Superstars episodes, just the things he does, the yelling. I mean, he was great as Jacques Rougeau, so there's no surprise that he would take this character immediately. It's definitely one of my favorites right out of the gate.
Okay. All right. I did too. I liked it too. And that's pretty much it for that match. Really, again, not much, only a minute 20, and Mountie hits Tito with the cattle prod, and that's pretty much the end of that. Now, after a long, exhaustive undercard with a lot of emotion, one huge title change, and a couple of DQs, we get to our main event. Sir?
Joining me in just a moment, Sergeant Slaughter and his commanding officer, General Adnan. But before the World Wrestling Federation
lost audio. Hang on.
Champion arrives, let's take a look at some of the action that has taken place leading up to this historic match for the World Wrestling Federation Championship here at Wrestlemania VII.
Rules. These are the kind of rules that the General and I break. Hulk Hogan at Wrestlemania VII. You and all your Pukamaniacs and Hulkamania are gonna go up in flames. I can't believe this.
Joining me now, the World Wrestling Federation Champion, Sergeant Slaughter, and his commanding officer, General Adnan.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أيها الإخوان العرب، هالك هوجن، النار والجحيم ثم الحريق. إن البطل العالمي ساجد سلاتر سوف يحطمك داخل الحلبة وخارج الحلبة، وهذا رفع الراس إلى جميع العرب. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Sergeant Slaughter, a translation?
Stand at attention, you piece of human waste. And listen up. And all you Pukamaniacs out there, listen up.
Oh, it's going to be stupid for me now. It's loading.
Being blocked by Al Jazeera.
I wanted to play that because I feel like we're not going to have too many good, Slaughter clips remaining. And his promos during this time, as we talked about, were just phenomenal.
Yes.
Piece of human waste cracked me up.
Yes, I know.
But yeah, as you can tell, it was going to be another great Slaughter promo. And leading into this, of course, was some good stuff. His first title defense on TV came when he slaughtered your buddy Jim Duggan on the main event in early February.
Well, he should have.
And then from there, he burnt the Hulk Hogan shirt, of course. And then on the Superstars and Stripes Forever, Hogan fought General Adnan and Slaughter interfered, and they both beat him down and locked him in the camel clutch. So a lot of hot build into this show heading into this match. Slaughter had been playing by the Slaughter rules, of course, he kept saying leading up. And, if you really watch those shows building up to this, they really did do a great job building this match.
Absolutely. There's a rumor, I don't know if it's true because Vince is very patriotic, but there was a rumor floating around, and we'd probably, I don't know if we'd be able to be researched or not, but I read somewhere that originally Vince asked Slaughter to burn the American flag, and Slaughter told him, "You're out of your fucking mind." So they burned Hogan's shirt, which actually probably had roughly the same effect anyway. Slaughter was just so awesome in this, really leading up to this. According to the True Story of WrestleMania DVD, Vince told Slaughter earlier on in 1990 that he wanted Hogan wanted Slaughter to face him. He wanted to work with Slaughter at WrestleMania. Do I totally believe that? I don't know. Because you and I have talked about that at least up until probably December, the rumor was that this was supposed to be the sequel to Hogan and Warrior. Now I don't know when that flipped, but obviously you make nice on these DVDs to make it special. But
right.
Regardless of who the opponent was, Slaughter was spot on for 5 straight months, all the way to this show.
Mm-hmm.
He knew how to you absolutely just wanted to just punch him in the face. You just wanted to knock that chin off. That's how much you hated him, which meant he was doing his job. And General Adnan, formerly, of course, Sheikh Adnan al-Kaisi, back in the AWA days, was awesome in the role of the guy who didn't speak any English. And then, of course, Slaughter with the boots and again, burning the shirt and then attacking Hogan. It was just such a great moment.
Yep.
And a great run. And, it's not often that a guy makes his WrestleMania debut as your world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't happen very often. Now, in terms of timing, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the actual Operation Desert Storm pretty much was reaching the end. We had pretty much, bitch slapped Iraq from one end of the desert to the other by this point, and pretty much liberated Kuwait. So from a world events perspective, Desert Storm was pretty much winding down, but that didn't mean we could milk the last bit of patriotism out of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a good cap, and as we'll get to on our next show, this really should have ended this feud.
I agree. We'll get more into that when we get to the next show, how milking it really, I mean, they milked every cow they could out of this feud. But here it was still fine. And it just, I don't know if you have, I'm sure I don't know if you found Hogan's promo, but again, Hogan's promo was just like any other one of his promos. Yeah. Nothing special. But obviously, at the announce table, Bobby would still be there, and he would be joined by Regis Philbin would join the announce booth.
Yeah, I thought Regis was pretty good here. I mean, he's a guy who's always kind of loosely been associated with the periphery of wrestling, so he knew what was going on, especially at this point.
Right.
So I thought he was good enough in the booth, and of course the other celebrities, Alex Trebek does the ring announcing, and Marla Maples is the timekeeper. Those are the 3 big celebrities from this show. They were on throughout the show doing interviews and whatnot backstage.
Don't they show Macaulay Culkin in the audience?
Yeah,
is that during this match?
No, it's early on. It's very early in the show. Yeah.
Okay.
But here, as far as like the 3 major celebrities go, these are the 3. So Trebek does a pretty good job at the introductions, except for his weird inflection on Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, very Canadian. That's because he's Canadian and has no interest in this whatsoever. So.
But yeah, Regis I thought was pretty good.
Well, you know what? He's a talk show pro. He knows how to. He's just like Euchre. He knows how to just slide into a role and kind of roll with it and just sound good. So the match now on paper, you probably think, wow, this match is going to completely suck. Once again, we were surprised. It was an exceptional match. And Slaughter did a great job of dictating the tempo on this show, in this match, and really took it to Hogan. Hogan took a pretty decent beatdown for a good portion of this match, and obviously made the big comeback, and he got busted open for the second time in 3 years. He was busted open by Savage at WrestleMania V. That was more of a cut. This, he actually got busted open. I don't think it was meant to happen, but it did. It might have been hard way. And the crowd's building, and the announcing is great, and then finally the big hulking up, the boot, the leg drop. And just like the year before, for those that forgot, Slaughter kicked out at like 3 1/4. if you remember the match, he kicked out like right after the 3 count.
Yep.
So I don't know if that means anything, but I always thought that was funny. And I always remember Regis going, "What a comeback!" right at the end, which I always thought was funny.
I really like this match, and it's our second match that hits the 20-minute mark. This and the Warrior match are both given all that time. And I think a lot of people maybe would think that, oh God, Hogan, Slaughter 20 minutes, but these two guys really work a good match together.
Yeah, they did.
Like you said, Slaughter builds the heat. He uses the chair at one point, busts Hogan up. He puts the American flag on him, gets the Campbell. He does everything you can do. And then Hogan gets a quick comeback in the win to win the title, and of course bring America back to the forefront of all our minds. So I really liked the match here. I think it's as far as WrestleMania main events go. Of course, it's not top of the level, but it's in the middle somewhere. It's not awful at all. It's definitely a fun match to watch. And Slaughter, you say what you want about Slaughter in this whole thing. He has worked his ass off since he came back.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. And actually, Hogan makes not one but 2 hulking ups in this match, which you don't see very often. He actually hulked up twice. The first time, Slaughter cut it off. Second time, got the boot, got the leg drop, got the win. And I don't know if Gorilla actually says it or if we just mentioned it because we're stat geeks, but Hulk Hogan is the first 3-time World Wrestling Federation champion.
Yep.
First time. First time someone's won it 3 times. Which back then was a big deal.
Yeah.
Now it's nothing. But back then it was a big deal. And we had the ending just kept going. Hogan, and this was one time, I know we've argued a lot about it and bitched a lot about it, and Justin's going on at least 3 annoying rants about Hogan's nonsense, but at this moment in time, the posing and the posturing was fine. It was just right for this moment. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
You can't complain. The last 2 years, Hogan's done the right thing.
Yeah.
That will quickly change as this year goes on.
Yeah, that's an understatement. And that's it. That's your show.
Good, very good WrestleMania. Very good WrestleMania.
It is. It is one of the better WrestleManias. You and I on our review, which you can follow along if you hadn't. If you want to listen to this again, follow along with us. Bigelow34.proboards.com and find our review.
You hear some complaints about because of the time period. People think 1991 is when WWF was really starting to fade, and also about the length of the show, which can be a hamper to some, but. Overall, when you look at it top to bottom, it really did have a lot of good matches, a lot of great storylines, and like we said last year, the faces win where they need to, the heels win where they need to. The only one you can maybe complain about is Boss Man, but we talked about why that may not have been a good idea. But when you factor everything in together, plus you get the all-time match in the middle there, and a very good main event. I mean, we gave it a B+. It's definitely up there as far as ranking WrestleManias go.
Mm-hmm. It does, and as someone mentioned, we'll mention in a moment on the feedback. This is like the last cookie cutter WrestleMania where Vince had to load it up with a lot of fluff.
Yep.
When we go 1 year from now, you will not see this much fluff at all. And then Vince goes back to the millions of matches later on in the decade and into the 2000s. But we'll get there. All right, why don't we do the feedback? We're going to actually change things up. I'm going to let my PIC rest his voice, and I'll do the feedback this evening. A lot of great comments from our wonderful listeners, and long comments. This is interesting, though. This first one, because we've never done this before on the Place to Be podcast, so you will hear it intermittently. We're reversing the roles, because tonight I am going to say our first comment is from Kieran Polland.
The Hot Scott.
There you go. Excellent. Kieran says, first off, I would like to congratulate Vince McMahon for putting Jim Duggan on commentary for the first match. Should have replaced Bobby with Duggan for the show. Only kidding, Scott. All right, I'm not reading yours anymore. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. The retirement match was awesome, and it proves my point that Warrior was a little bit underrated in the ring. He could go when a big-time match was happening, and put it this way, wrestling fans tend to remember his best matches more than when they're thinking about the Warrior rather than his awful matches. That is true. Macho King becoming the Macho Man once again and reuniting with Elizabeth is a great moment, and Bobby's comments about the crying fans was hilarious. The main event is not as bad as you might think, although I think Adnan was completely moronic when he was distracting the referee when Slaughter was pinning Hogan. You do it the other way around, you idiot. Good point. By our man Kieran Polland. Our next comment. These are all from our Facebook page, our Place to Be podcast Facebook page. Next, Dennis Nunez. WrestleMania VII is a fun show to watch with a very hot crowd almost the entire night. Undertaker began his famous WrestleMania streak by defeating the Superfly in a relatively quick match. That's how he says it, Superfly, F-L-A-A. Jake the Snake versus Rick Martel in the blindfold match was pretty funny to watch, and it's a match concept I'm surprised hasn't been brought back since. Nasty Boys defeating the Hart Foundation is a good, solid match. Probably would have been a little better had it gone a little longer. Hogan beat Slaughter for the title in an uninteresting match, I think. Really? Interesting.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of divergent opinions on that one.
Yeah, I have too. To me, Hogan now resembles Cena, but with more charisma and an orange tan. I read on a website that said that watching the Warrior Savage match is the equivalent of drinking Red Bull and coffee while listening to Enter Sandman and seeing your favorite sports team win a world championship in the span of 20 minutes. And I have to agree with that.
Yeah, it's up and down, definitely.
Yeah, it's crazy. It absolutely holds up today, from the intrigue of seeing Liz in the audience to the entrances to the actual match to seeing the Macho Man reuniting with his estranged former manager, which unfortunately now is much more sadder to watch, is all undeniably epic. And I kind of agree with you on that in terms of emotion, Dennis. Macho Man's 5 or 6 elbow drops on Warrior, as we said it is 5, and Warrior kicking out always makes my inner Mark squeal with delight. This for me is the whole show, and I usually lose interest in the rest of it after watching this match, but that's usually because this match was so awesome. You know, you do. He's right though. You know, there are some people who don't like the Hogan Slaughter match. They think it's kind of long. They think it kind of drags. Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's fine. Ryan Howard, no, not that Ryan Howard, says, I first want to mention a few of my memorable non-wrestling moments from this show. Willie Nelson wearing the kid's belt, singing at the start of the show. As we mentioned, he does look like a guy who's sleeping under a park bench outside the arena. The Slick Warlord promo about Bulldog. Oh, David boy, you're about to be devoured. Forgot how great that promo was. It's tremendous. Knobs trying to kiss Marla Maples after they won the tag titles. Regis interview with Katao and Teneiru, which is only on the DVD, I think. Is that true?
No, the Regis. No, I've seen that. That's on every copy.
Okay, I thought so.
Because they just he tries to talk to them and they talk Japanese and he tries to get something out of them. They just keep staring at him. It's pretty funny actually.
Okay. And the female fans crying after Liz Savage reunited with Heenan doing commentary over it are a few of my favorites. As for the matches, Savage Warrior, Perfect Boss Man, and Rockers, Barbarian, and Haku were my favorites on the card. The storytelling by Savage Warrior was just amazing. The foot on Savage at the end of the match was a memorable image to me. The rest of the card was memorable for other reasons. The Undertaker streak, first blindfold match, super squash match by LOD over Power and Glory, and Virgil Piper at the end of the DiBiase-Virgil match with Virgil saying to Piper, get up, and Piper struggling falling into Virgil's arms while frigging ridiculous now. I thought it was great as a kid. Just to mention one more thing, I always remember the Tito Mountie match because if you watch, Mountie didn't get one single offensive move off except the shock stick, and when he got the win. I always found that hilarious. Overall, it's one of the first Coliseum videos I ever bought as a kid, and it still holds up whenever I get a nostalgic feeling to either put in the VHS or the Anthology DVD. While not my all-time favorite WrestleMania, it still ranks maybe in the top 10. Okay, that is Ryan Howard. Next, Corey Ferreira, my Triple H and Laker fan brother. A very good WrestleMania. Match of the night easily goes to Warrior and Savage in what is Warrior's best match. I love Heenan's commentary during the post-match, during the Savage Elizabeth Reunion Classic Heenan. I did enjoy the Hart Foundation and Nasty Boys match. It was a good last hurrah as Brett was going on to bigger and better things in the summer. The main event program was very good. I did enjoy the Slaughter heel run in 1991. It was a big deal, them burning the Hogan shirt. I could imagine the heat if they did burn the U.S. flag, but Slaughter did not want to go through with it, as I mentioned earlier. Also a historic event that would begin the legendary undefeated streak of the Phenom The Undertaker. Overall, a good event, which I found underrated, and begins the end of the Hulkamania Golden Era, or Federation years. And did Vince really expect to do over 100,000 people at the LA Coliseum when his product was beginning to cool in popularity? Good point. Jason Greenhouse. This show is on my list of top 3 Manias ever. Savage Warrior was a true classic. From the build-up to the match itself to the post-match happenings, it all equaled an A+. Hogan Slaughter, on the other hand, was a disaster of a main event. Interesting. Although the shot of Hogan flying the American flag with a bloody face at the end of the show is a lasting image from the show. The Harts and Nasties put on one hell of a tag title match. Soon after this show, Bret Hart's singles career would skyrocket. The Rockers vs. Barbarian and Haku was a great opening match. Davey Boy and the Warlord showed that 2 jacked-up meatheads could still put on a decent match. That's a funny way he put it. Sad to see pretty much the beginning of the end to Demolition at this show. As corny as their storyline was, the Jake Roberts, Ricky Martel blindfold match was great. Both men are ring masterminds, especially the way that Jake had the crowd in the palm of his hand the entire match. See, like Mr. Azaro mentioned. The beginning of the Undertaker streak, Jim Duggan dressed up like Uncle Sam. God help us all. I agree. The debut of the best WrestleMania theme music ever. That is not true. The theme music debuted at WrestleMania 6, just to clarify, Jason. If that's the music he's thinking of, right?
I'm sure, yeah.
I'm assuming that's what he's thinking. Yes. Just a correction, Jason. It actually was at WrestleMania 6, too.
Yep.
And finally, Willie Nelson managed to fit just about every item from the WWF merchandise catalog in his body. Yeah, didn't he have the bandana on, too?
Yeah, he had a whole bunch of shit on.
Yeah, he definitely
had the shirt,
like...
the hat, the bandana.
Yeah, he was definitely a hobo. What a mark. I hope for his sake Willie got everything tax exempt. Oh, God. All right. A lot of feedback the show. A lot of it. Austin Pfaff, one of our newer listeners. Great Mania all around. I'm sure Scott enjoyed Duggan's commentary during the first match. Of course I did not. It's a shame that after Savage's death, this Mania will always be associated with the WrestleMania VII curse. The reason he says that is because I believe someone wrote 25% of the people that are on this show are now dead.
That is pretty messed up.
That's pretty sad. Jared Incel. WrestleMania 7 is the last of the cookie-cutter WrestleManias. This is who I was mentioning said that. The ones with 12 to 14 matches with only a few clocking over 10 minutes. Overall, it's a pretty solid show. Savage vs. Warrior is definitely the match of the night, but Hogan vs. Slaughter is an underrated title bout. After all of these years, I still don't understand why the Nasty Boys were chosen to be the transition champions between the Hearts and LOD. Why not Power and Glory or Demolition? As a diehard Demolition fan, it's really hard for me to see them go out like this, losing a match that they dominated for two Japanese wrestlers who no one gives a shit about in North America. That being said, the pre-match interview with Demolition and Alex Trebek is priceless. Jeff Miklos. Duggan on commentary was like Mel Allen, Red Barber, Vince Scully, and Al Michaels all rolled into one. Can we get the link to the Duggan song you always play?
And I did deliver that. It is. I'll post it on the main part of the Facebook page tomorrow, but I put it up in that comment thread for you.
I'm so glad that this was the night that I debuted me reading the feedback, and I get to. I think this was planned. It's a setup. It's a conspiracy. J. Arsenio D'Amato. Savage Warrior had everything that makes wrestling awesome all in one match. Drama, athleticism, romance, comedy from the brain. Hart's Nasty Boys was a typical entertaining tag match from this era. Jimmy Hart was so awesome. So sad that Andre would be gone shortly after this, but he got one of his last great moments. And, actually, a second comment from our good friend, Kieran Polland.
The Hot Scott.
There you go. I forgot that this is the start of Taker's streak. 1-0 equals Jimmy Snuka. Yes, this is Taker's first match. Okay, that is the Place to Be podcast feedback. Let's go now to our good friend Graham Cawthon's History of WWE Facebook page and the comments there. Just want to find the thread. There we go. Okay, 6 comments here. Brent Garrison says, other than the fiasco over the Coliseum, my 2 memories of this show is Randy Savage's amazing bumping to put the Warrior over in his retirement match and the arrival of Davey Boy Smith as a player on the singles side. Jason Greenhouse comments here too, but his comments here are a little different than on our page. This Mania is in my top 3 favorite Manias of all time. Warrior Savage is a true classic. The story build-up, the match itself, and the post-match happenings were all an A+. The Hearts and Nasty Boys had a nice little tag match. Of course, shortly after this, Bret Hart would go on to become one of the greatest singles stars of all time. The Rockers versus Haku and the Barbarian is one of the best opening matches at a Mania. Hogan versus Slaughter was as sloppy of a WrestleMania main event as you can get. I do, however, like the image of a bloody Hogan waving the American flag after the match. That, along with Liz on Randy's shoulder, are the 2 still images that stand out from this show. Bulldog and Warlord showed that jacked up guys can still put on a great match. And I've always been impressed that Willie Nelson managed to get every piece of merchandise from the catalog on his body. He did mention that as well. Brannon, I think this is how it's pronounced, Brannon Whitehead. I think it's Brannon. Brannon Whitehead. For me, the crowning moment of WrestleMania VII will always be the Savage Warrior match and Randy and Liz's reunion afterwards. The match was an absolute masterpiece, no small accomplishment there where the Warrior is concerned, and the Savage-Liz reunion stands as one of my favorite memories in my 20-plus years as a fan of the business. Okay? David Morrison. Barbarian, awesome power slam on Marty Jannetty. Savage and Liz, emotional reunion. Demolition getting jobbed to Teneru and Katao, which I still can't watch. That match still to this day. Hogan winning the WWF title for the 3rd time, and of course, Undertaker's WrestleMania debut versus Superfly Jimmy Snuka, starting his undefeated WrestleMania streak. Jason Hunsicker. While not the best Mania ever, obviously, it is my personal favorite, as it is the first one I watched live and remember the entire build for. Warrior Savage is a great storyteller. The Martel-Jake match is unique for its time and does a great job of involving the crowd. The Undertaker's historic streak starts here, and the way the Virgil DiBiase match ends makes you wanting more. Unfortunately, with the recent passing of Randy Savage, 25% of the WrestleMania 7 card are no longer with us. That's where I got that from Jason Hunsicker's comment. And finally, on the History of WWE Facebook page, Steve Riddle. I think this is a very underrated WrestleMania. Opening match was very good and starts a 3-year run for HBK at WrestleMania. The Nasty Boys win in a shocker to gain the tag straps and would jumpstart Bret's solo run. The blindfold match was great on a psychology level, and the action was good. Undertaker demolishes Snuka to begin the greatest streak in wrestling today. Savage Warrior is excellent, and is a shame it's not included in the annals of the greatest WrestleMania matches. Even better than the match was the reunion of Savage and Elizabeth. Even the WWF title match was as good as Slaughter could work a good match, and Hogan winning his 3rd world title was historic. Add a fun commentary team in Gorilla and Bobby, and this makes for a very good WrestleMania. So that is off of the Graham Cawthon's History of WWE Facebook page. One comment from our message board, bigelow34.proboards.com, and that's from Robert Hoff, who says, WrestleMania 7 is a favorite of mine. Some highlights for me include Willie Nelson wearing the toy WWF belt while singing America the Beautiful, a really hot opener that is almost killed by Duggan's drooling commentary. Thank you, Robert. Boo. The shock of the Nasty Boys winning the tag titles. I thought for sure the Hearts would keep the belts. Of course, I didn't know that one of the greatest singles careers was about to be launched. Jake versus Martel in the blindfold match. The match is dripping in psychology mixed in with a little comedy. Probably the best match I've ever seen that barely had any action. Warrior delivering again at WrestleMania against Macho, my favorite match of 1991. I still can't believe people were crying when Macho and Elizabeth reunited afterward. Good comedy with big-time celebrities like Henry Winkler and Lou Ferrigno. Big time in quotes. The Hogan Slaughter was predictable but still entertaining and maybe even a little underrated. I thought Regis worked great as a guest commentator too. I believe this is the first pay-per-view with Heenan and Gorilla working together. Awesome job by both. They really tied the show together. And that is our feedback.
And we
A
will
lot of
let
very detailed comments about this show.
Yeah.
And what's great is a lot of differing emotions.
Yep, I
about
like to
this
see
show.
that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And just because we're done with this review doesn't mean you guys can't continue these discussions on those threads, you know?
Absolutely. And for those that that don't like the Hogan Slaughter match, please expound on your thoughts. We'd love to continue the debate. We're not the know all to end all, obviously. So if you think the match sucks, no problem. Let us know why you think so, and we can we can talk about it.
All right, with that, we will let the old man go hit the oxygen tank after all that reading.
Yeah, really. No, I get the night off on that one. You're lucky on that one.
Sounded like big fun. So I'll go ahead and read. I would like to take a moment quickly because we're kind of running long here. Let's quickly announce the winner of our contest.
Yes. Our contest winner is
to determine. Of course, like we asked you guys to submit your favorite moments, and the winner was going to be appearing on a future Place to Be episode, of course, and that winner is Todd Weber, one of our earliest fans. Let me read you his feedback. You can see it. Everyone's feedback. Oh, by the way, this was very hard. It was not easy at all.
No, Justin and you and I took a good 2 or 3 hours today to really pour over these comments and really think about it. It was not easy. Not easy at all.
Scott's anger at someone calling him out for being on a first-name basis with Stone Cold Steve Austin is my personal favorite moment. That or Matt Rotella not realizing a racially charged nickname for Mark Henry. Most listeners will probably suggest a Jim Duggan soundbite, but I haven't heard the one I want just yet. It involves old Hacksaw being suspended for competition, attending as a spectator, yelling out, "Here's my ticket." I need to find that one. And if Scott thinks the Bushwhackers tweaking Rougeau's twig and berries is amusing, he should Google Andre the Giant checks Hulk Hogan's oil. Goodness gracious. So. But like I said, everyone, J.R. Arsenio D'Amato, Ryan Howard, the Sanchez, Kieran, everyone, Dennis Nunez, of course, Corey Ferreira. Thank you all for chiming in there. We're going to do this again probably when we hit 100 for sure. Yeah. Todd Weber, unfortunately, will not be able to join us for our 50th episode due to a scheduling conflict, but we have promised him he will be on a future episode, and he will be getting me an acceptance speech for me to read on Monday. Okay. So as I mentioned, Monday is our 50th episode, so we will be coming to you then with our good friend Joseph Lee. We're going to talk some movies and some wrestling with him. He's a cool guy, so we look forward to chatting him up. And then, of course, SummerSlam 91, and then the week after that, we'll build to this year's SummerSlam. Pretty good timing, I guess, that we're doing SummerSlam 91.
Yes.
And then we'll be doing our SummerSlam Listomania leading into SummerSlam. And then from there, we have tons of NFL, college football, and our big couple wrestling interviews we have left as well. So.
And coming up Monday for the 50th, we may put on our good friend Matt Rotella because it might be his last. It will be his last podcast as a single man.
Yeah. So we may need some Chicago-themed music for him to come on to. So, all right. So as always, thank you for listening. WrestleMania 7 was a blast to talk about. And for my PIC, Scotty C, I am Justin T. Rosero. We will be talking to you soon. Thanks.
Peace.